Thank you everybody coming today. Have a seat or grab some food, then have a seat. And it's very important for today. If you look at the screen, there is a request to go to that website, paulev.com/ that's my name almost, 295. And keep your cell phone at that page for a while, and then I will change the screen and you will see something on your cell phone. Today we will do the lecture a little bit different. Previously, every lecture we prepared with didactic lectures, slides, presentations from various hospitals by doctors, and there was a request about more interpersonal communication, more discussion, more possibility of discussing events and cases. So this is what we will do today. The reason I ask you to do that thing on the cell phone is because we will have polling questions. The polling questions, everybody done? Done? What do you see on the screen?
We can't say it from Scott.
Because now I changed the slide, and you should see something similar on your cell phone. And if you answer that question, if you push some of the button, then you will see how the answers overall are changing. If you think you missed it, there is a button to cancel, so you can go back and change your answer. Now you need to know that although this is like recorded and it's actually published right now on YouTube. You know what? Let me speak in the microphone, because otherwise it doesn't get recorded.
Check.
So,
Scott, you can only vote once.
the answers are seen, everyone can see the answers, but they are not, no names are attached, so I don't know whose answer is what. And the purpose of it, this is not to ridicule some people, but really we are here for teaching and learning, okay? So, yeah, officially we started, so why don't I just go ahead? See, most of the people say alteplase is not a dangerous drug. Some people say alteplase is a dangerous drug. What do you think how dangerous it is? Next question. The drug that causes more fatalities in the US year over year is alteplase or insulin? So now the question are fatalities. You know, there are more diabetic patients, there are less stroke patients, there are more insulin used, there is less alteplase used. However, alteplase it can cause really bad bleedings occasionally. The question is, which one is worse, insulin or alteplase? May I assume that this is your final answer? Then let's go ahead. I don't have overall numbers, so I don't know how many of you answered. And by the way, whoever is watching over the internet, this can be reached anywhere from the world. So if this is being watched from New Zealand, then they can log in and do the polling. Because it's risky nature, I am concerned about physically handling alteplase, insulin, both or neither. I'm concerned about physically handling. I mean that I am concerned of actually touching the drug, the vial, the bottle, to mix it, to give it to the patient. I let other people do it because I'm afraid of it. That's what I mean, okay? I don't want to do it, let other people do it instead of me. Thank you. And next. I have previously heard about bad complications after giving TPA. You know, you are working in your usual environment, in the ED and the hospital, and you are hearing things about, oh, TPA, yeah, it was bad. I heard that. I know everyone. I know everyone. Anybody surprised about the 100? No, I'm not surprised. I know what's going on. Scott here? Scott,
I answered yes. Just if everyone wants to see, here it is.
I know that you answered yes. But are you surprised that there are other people who all of them answered yes?
If they understand the product, yes, then they know what they're talking about.
So these are some facts I just collected from the internet and from the appropriate statistical data. So there are approximately 800,000 strokes per year in the United States. 10% average receives IVtPA, that's 80,000 people, okay? And 5.8% of them are having symptomatic hemorrhage, and this 5.8% comes from two data. It's 6.4, but we need to withdraw the 0.6, which is actually the placebo. So this is the difference between placebo and the real drug. It's 5.8%. So if I calculate with that number, then it is 4,640 symptomatic hemorrhages per year. Now for insulin, of course, it doesn't cause symptomatic hemorrhage, so we can't compare oranges to oranges. But here are the numbers. There are 3 million diabetic patients who are on insulin in the United States. They are getting insulin. And of those, 100,000 visit the ER per year for insulin-related hypoglycemia. As it turns out, after some evaluation, that was the problem. Okay, 100,000. And the number is like 60 of every 100,000 diabetic patients die from insulin-related issues, which is yearly 1,800 insulin-related deaths. So now we compare the 4,600 IVtPA symptomatic hemorrhages, but they are not deaths, okay? These are symptomatic hemorrhages, to the 1,800 insulin-related deaths, and you will understand that either we cannot say that IVtPA is more risky, but what we may say is they are either equivalent or insulin is actually worse than IVtPA. Everyone agrees?
I don't know where you got those numbers from, but those insulin-related deaths and 100,000 ER visits sounds awful low to me.
Not 100,000 ER visits, no. For every 100,000 patients who are on insulin, so it's not the same, of them, so you need to multiply that with the 3 million. Okay, that's how it comes. Yes?
Just a comment. I think if everyone followed the guidelines and did the TPA within the guidelines as it's recommended, that number would be much lower. I think some of those symptomatic bleeds come from processes that do not stay within the guidelines,
Yes,
most likely.
but here is my view on this. We are chasing the numbers. We try to give the TPA in 10 minutes instead of 15. And when we do that, we necessarily compromise on some of the safety because we don't even have time within 10 minutes to actually figure out that the patient 3 days ago had a fall, right, or something like that, you know. Eventually, let's say 10 minutes later, we will know. And then like crazy, we will try to reverse IVtPA, and then next day or an hour later, we do a CAT scan and the patient already has a bleeding. So I remember one of our patients who had some, who came from oral surgery, correct me if I'm wrong, came from oral surgery, and the information was that there was no surgery done because they didn't even start because
She got
the patient,
altered.
yeah, she got altered mental status and neurological symptoms. And then we gave TPA, and then the information came that yes, the procedure was at least started. And then guess what? The patient got some bleeding from the fresh surgery. And it was covered, of course, we couldn't see that. The patient had something deep in the mouth somewhere, I don't know where.
She was like scaled and planed, and it was under the gum line, and it was not visible.
Right. So this is what my answer is, that yes, you are right. And if we had unlimited time and unlimited knowledge about every patient, then we could significantly lower the risk of these bleeds. But we don't have. We are eager to give TPA as soon as possible. So we have to acknowledge that, yeah, it comes with some percentage of complications. So let's go forward. Next polling question. Oh, that's something similar than before, but now a little bit different. I have previously heard about complete cure of stroke after IVtPA administration. So now the question is, does IVtPA work? And yeah, obviously it does work. Everyone answer the question? And how much it does work, I can show you a case. I prepared a case which was a recent one. You know that number, we had it in the, we were involved in the therapy trial with Penumbra, and they based the therapy trial on the number that if a blood clot is longer than 8 millimeter in the MCA, then the chance of IVtPA dissolving it is less than 5%. That number, based on the therapy trial, I think proved to be wrong. Because IVtPA dissolves more than just 5% of those clots, and sometimes really dissolves surprisingly long and massive blood clots in the middle cerebral artery. And this is one of those cases. So what we see here is a 71-year-old female, last time known well 1800, arrived to the emergency room 1830, CT read was done at 1845, and the patient received the IVtPA bolus at 7:08. I did not bring this up because of the excellent door-to-needle time. In fact, this case was with teleneurology, so compared to that situation, actually we were pretty good. But I brought the case up because of what was seen on the CAT scan, and there was a hyperdense media sign on the plain brain. Now let me use my magic pen there. Okay, everyone sees the hyperdense media sign, and when we did the CT, of course after this the patient got the TPA, but then we continued with the CT perfusion, CT angiogram, and you can see this approximately 10 millimeter long blood clot in the middle cerebral artery. Then, as I mentioned, we did the perfusion scan, and from the perfusion scan it's completely obvious that there is a large penumbra on the right MCA territory. The whole right MCA territory is involved. This is the mean transit time. And this is the cerebral blood volume, which is important because you see there are some small but black holes there, which means that the patient doesn't have very good collateral circulation in that area. This patient is at risk of developing, at least in those territories, to develop irreversible changes, basically stroke, very soon if we don't act fast. Now, of course, we acted fast, but first the patient, as I mentioned, the patient got TPA. And then after TPA, we rushed the patient to the angio room, and this is what waited for me in the angio room. And actually, there is no blood clot. look at that. This is the right MCA, and the right MCA is completely open, and the right MCA in the lateral view is completely open. Now, I know that there was a tiny little branch somewhere in that area that seemed like occluded, so this was, to me, this was a TK2C, okay. And then we did the MRI, and this is the only hit, the only tiny hit right there related to the fact that the patient had a blood clot in the MCA prior to IVtPA.
What were the presenting symptoms? Were they plegic?
Yeah, the patient was plegic. The patient had, I think, an NIH stroke scale of like 14 or 17 or something like that. But I was told that the patient got some improvement after IVtPA administration. So we will get there later, but do improvements of patients' neurological symptoms, are they a contraindication of continuing what we are doing? Let's say we haven't given IVtPA yet. Do you give IVtPA if the patient's symptoms improve? Yes. It's frequent, you know, everyone knows that. The patient can go back to normal, yet have the MCA still occluded. That's the opposite. I don't have an example for that, but that happens pretty frequently, that the patient has an NIH between 10 and 20, giving IVtPA, or the patient is not eligible for IVtPA, let's say, but the patient is improving. Should we put the patient on the angio table? Should I do the angiogram? The patient is normal now, NIH 0, really, no symptoms at all. Do I do the angiogram? Yes, I do the angiogram. Because I do the angiogram, and what do I find? There is a completely occluded MCA, and I know that a patient has the adrenaline rush, the patient has the blood pressure high, and that's the only reason why the patient is temporarily back to normal, but not permanently. And if I don't remove that blood clot, even if the NIH is 0, and the patient goes back, not necessarily. We do have some of the cases where patients with good collaterals, with excellent collaterals, with an occluded MCA, survive without stroke, even if we don't remove the blood clot. I have examples to that too, but I would rather remove a blood clot when I'm in the middle of that thing. So, this is a little bit longer. Just read it carefully, and I'll read it to the mic. I know TPA is dangerous because, A, because I previously had experienced its side effect on a patient I was involved with. Yeah, someone read E. That's the final solution. Yeah. B, I heard about a bad side effect from one of my colleagues she experienced. C, I heard from one of my colleagues about a case he was told. You see where I'm going? This is how gossip, rumors spread. Did I experience myself, or did I hear from my colleague, or did I hear from my colleague who heard it from his or her colleague? Or, this is also happening, in the department I work, everybody heard those stories about all those terrible IVtPA complications. And finally, I included this one because I couldn't stand not to. The government uses TPA in cramped AS too. Did you hear that, Scott? No. IVtPA is bad because the government uses TPA in the chemtrails. Did you know that? You know what chemtrail is? Okay. Yeah, no one fell to that. Okay. Okay, now your personal experience of those who are here in the hall and in the room and actually are being involved in patient care. I have previously handled alteplase TPA before, personally. I took it out from the shelf, out of the Pyxis, I mixed it, I gave it to the patient. Nobody?
It's not coming out.
Not coming up? What's happening?
It's still on the previous question.
Okay, now what do we do then? Let's go back. This is the previous question.
Yeah.
What now? Did it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think all the answers are in. So most of you personally handled alteplase before. Did it come up? In a real life situation, I would be concerned to personally give IVtPA.
You mean like scared?
Yes. Scared. And again, we are going to that point of view which says that, I will let other people do that. I think we have a pretty good number of people answering, because 9% it cannot just happen when 10 people are answering. At least 11. If I have concerns giving IVtPA, it's because IVtPA is a dangerous drug. I am mostly concerned about patient safety. Or because IVtPA is an expensive drug, I am mostly concerned about the financial burden if I mess it up, if I drop it on the floor. Or because IVtPA is a regulated drug and I haven't passed the safe IVtPA practices exam of the Stroke Association. So everybody knows that there is no safe IVtPA practices exam, right? Anyone can use IVtPA. Every nurse who passed the nursing, who has a nursing license can use IVtPA.